Good morning. Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Sunday morning service at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Laguna Beach. My name is Pamela Flodman and I will be serving as the worship associate this morning. Our Zoom and audiovisual texts today are Don West Jr., Paul Bogdan, and Dara Skarecki, and our music will be led by our incomparable music director, Carole. This morning, we are delighted to welcome back to UUFLB Michael Eselun, a frequent guest minister and a friend of our congregation for a long time. We have not had the opportunity to worship together in person with Michael for the last 2 years plus, and so we are excited for the opportunity to be together again in person. So welcome, Michael. Each Sunday, anywhere there is a service held in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, a chalice is lit. The flaming chalice is the symbol of our faith. So if you have joined us this morning by Zoom, I invite you to light a chalice within your home, as Michael lights the chalice for us here at UUFLB. We come together to light the chalice of our community, both in person and virtually, as a way of reminding ourselves of our common light, the spark within, the light we carry, and the light we give away. May we fan the flame of spirit within ourselves and within each other, with encouragement, with compassion, with a willingness to be a witness, knowing that it is enough. It is more than enough. It is what we came for. So thank you, Michael, for lighting our chalice this morning to begin our time of worship. And throughout the service this morning, if you are here with us in the building, I invite you, if you wish, to come forward and light a candle here in the sanctuary in recognition of whatever you are carrying in your heart as you join us for worship today. At UUFLB, we are a welcoming congregation. Whoever you are, whomever you love, no matter your age or gender, your ancestral or ethnic background, whatever sincere questions you bring with you today, really whatever has brought you here this morning, we welcome you to our community of mutual caring and serious intent to grow as spiritual and ethical beings. Many thanks to everyone at UUFLB who works together each week to create these opportunities for us to worship together, to be together in community. So I want to give thanks to our board, our worship committee, everyone who prepares each week for our Sunday morning services, making sure that the building is ready for us. And also the people who coordinate other events during the week, such as our Zoom at noon discussion group on Mondays. And we all know that there are always more opportunities to work together, more to be done. So if you are looking for a way to become more involved, please reach out. And for those of you who are new to our community or visiting today for the first or second time, we hope you have time to connect with us after the service. If you like, you can be added to our email mailing list so that you receive advance notice of each service and of other events. And this morning, I'm thinking of just some of the opportunities that are out there for people to get involved in if they wish. Once a month on Thursday afternoons, there are 2 members, John and Bruce, who coordinate members from UUFLB to bring food for the evening meal at the alternative sleeping location in Laguna Canyon. This coming Thursday night is our Thursday of the month when our congregation is providing the meal. And so each month there are people who volunteer, often the same group of volunteers who volunteer to bring the different components of the meal. But that's an opportunity for someone who wanted to become involved, maybe volunteer to help out in a month when there's someone out of town. So that's a great way to become involved in one of the long-term activities that members of this congregation have been involved with. And then we're also always looking for anyone who wants to even take a small part in helping prepare worship services or participating in the worship services here on Sunday mornings. So lots of opportunities to get involved, and please talk with me or one of the other leaders within the community if you have ideas of how you might like to be involved. Really connecting with each other is the way in which we build our community here at UUFLB as a strong base from which we can go out and make a difference in our local community and make a difference in the world. Now, Dawn will put up for us a slide with information about upcoming services here at UUFLB. So we'll give Dawn a minute to bring up that slide. Next Sunday, November 6th, we'll be visited by Reverend Tom Owen Toll, who is also a frequent visitor and long-term friend of our community here at UUFLB. And I'm hoping we're going to have the slide up in a minute. The following Sunday on November 13th, Reverend Nancy McDonald Ladd will be joining us to lead the service together with Dawn. And over the summer, many of you know that we had a book discussion group on Sundays focused on a book that was written by Reverend Nancy McDonald Ladd. So we're excited for the opportunity for her to join us for worship 2 weeks from today. And then you can also see other services that are coming up later in November here. We hope you have an opportunity to join us again, either by Zoom if you're joining us from home or coming in person here to the fellowship building. Our gathering music this morning, Teach Your Children Well, was suggested by our guest minister, Michael Eselun. And for me, this was a wonderful choice. And it gave me a chance to listen to this music multiple times over the past week as I was preparing for today's service. The lyrics always make me stop and think and reflect and remember. I first heard these lyrics when I was in high school. I think it was on one of the first LP albums that I ever bought with my own money. And the lyrics always make me stop and think both about, well, first of all, listening to the music and the harmonies, the beautiful music, the voices joining together in harmony. But also remember how this song really kind of gently encouraged me, even as a high schooler, to consider the perspectives of others, to take into account not only the way I saw the world, but think about the way maybe I was having an impact on the world as well. Think about other perspectives. So I'm grateful to Michael for suggesting we include this music in our service today, and especially grateful he has accepted our invitation to join us for worship this morning. Michael Eselun serves as the chaplain for the Sims-Mann UCLA Center for Integrative Oncology. He is a 2-time TEDx speaker, which really does impress me. I can't imagine speaking on a TEDx stage. Michael speaks extensively, though, to healthcare professionals, patient populations, and to faith communities across the country. He has also worked as an activist and an educator, addressing anti-LGBTQ bias in the larger community for over 30 years. Michael was recently inducted into the UCLA Semel Institute Eudaimonia Society, and this is in recognition of having lived a meaning-driven life. He has 4 volumes of CDs, which are available for purchase, and I'm sure you can speak with Michael after the service if you want to learn more about these. And you can also reach him through his website, which is www.michaeleselun.com. So this morning, the service title that Michael has chosen for us is spiritual report cards. I think that's intriguing. Michael has described the service with the following words. How many of us live our lives as if there will be a report card at the end of the term? What would constitute an A in your book, spiritually speaking? And does it matter? So today, Michael is going to lead us in exploring these questions. Now I'd like to turn to our centering thought for this morning, and it's listed on your order of service, but we'll also bring up a slide with the centering thought. And the centering thought is words from Viktor Frankl. So I invite you, if you wish, to read these words together with me and unmute yourself if you have joined us this morning by Zoom. And I'm reminded of how one of our long-term members often told me, I think exhorted all of us as a congregation, when we speak words, when we sing words, to engage with them actively and really think about what they're saying. So in that spirit, I invite you, if you wish, to read these words together with me, the words of Viktor Frankl. Everything
can be taken from a man, but one thing,
human freedom,
the last of human freedoms,
one's attitude,
to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As a call to worship, I'd like to offer this from Mark Nepo. It's called Behind the Thunder. I keep looking for one more teacher, only to find that fish learn from water and birds learn from sky. If you want to learn about the sea, it helps to be at sea. If you want to learn about compassion, it helps to be in love. If you want to learn about healing, it helps to know of suffering. The strong live in the storm without worshiping the storm. Please, is this our hymn now? It is. Please join me in singing our opening hymn, number 131, We Would Be One.
318.
Okay.
Three, 1, 8. We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high cause of greater understanding of who we are and what in us is true. We would be one in living for each other to show to all a new community. We would be one in building for tomorrow, a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As then we pledge ourselves to greater service with love and justice, strive to make us free.
Thank you, Carol. And I apologize for the number being wrong on the order of service. We'll do a double check for the closing hymn as well to make sure it's right. Very good. Well, let us take a moment now to remind ourselves why we come together as a community. I invite you to read these words together when and if it feels right to you. They will be on the screen in front. And if you wish and you've joined us by Zoom, please unmute your microphone so that we can all, both at home and here in the fellowship, feel the power that we have when we join our voices together. The words of the unison affirmation are on your screen, and please join me in reading. Love
Is the spirit of this fellowship,
and
and
service
service is its law.
This is
This is
our
our
Great covenant.
to
to
dwell
dwell
Together in peace.
to seek the
Seek
truth
the
in
truth
love,
in love.
and to
and
help.
to help one another.
One another.
This is on my reading. As a reading today, I'd like to share this from Brad Aaron Modlin, and it's called What You Missed That Day You Were Absent from Fourth Grade. Mrs. Nelson explained how to stand still and listen to the wind, how to find meaning in pumping gas, how peeling potatoes can be a form of prayer. She took questions on how not to feel lost in the dark. After lunch, she distributed worksheets that covered ways to remember your grandfather's voice. Then the class discussed falling asleep without feeling you had forgotten to do something else, something important, and how to believe the house you wake up in is your home. This prompted Mrs. Nelson to draw a chalkboard diagram detailing how to chant the Psalms during cigarette breaks, and how not to squirm for sound when your own thoughts are all you hear. Also, that you have enough. The English lesson was that I am is a complete sentence. And just before the afternoon bell, she made the math equation look easy, the one that proves that hundreds of questions and feeling cold and all those nights spent looking for whatever it was you lost and one person add up to something.
We have come now to a time in our service to briefly share the important events that have touched our lives in the past week. Our joys, when shared, are magnified. And when we share our sorrows, we provide the support and care that are vital for all of us in community. During this time of sharing our joys and concerns, we have paused the recording of the service as offertory section, also an area of joy, because it is as much a blessing for us to be able to give as it is to receive. We are a self-governing, self-sustaining community, and we recognize that it is the responsibility of all of us to do both well. So as we approach this time for our offering, we invite you to give what you will. Our fellowship depends on the love and the generous contribution from our members, and we are empowered by the innumerable gifts of those who join and covenant with us. Your time, compassion, humor, and your financial contribution. All of our gifts generously given are needed for this fellowship and for its continued good work in the world. So during this time of offering, we will be passing a basket here within the fellowship, and the information on your screen provides 2 additional ways in which you can give, either electronically or by sending a check to the fellowship. So please now stand if you're comfortable doing so and join us in singing to each other words of sincere gratitude. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live.
Ish by Peter H. Reynolds. Ish. Ramon loved to draw. Anytime, anything, anywhere. One day, Ramon was drawing a vase of flowers. His brother, Leon, leaned over his shoulder. Leon burst out laughing. "What is that?" he asked. Ramon could not even answer. He just crumpled up the drawing and threw it across the room. Leon's laughter haunted Ramon. He kept trying to make his drawings look right, but they never did. After many months and many crumpled sheets of paper, Ramon put his pencil down. "I'm done." Marisol, his sister, was watching him. "What do you want?" he snapped. "I was watching you draw," she said. Ramon sneered. "I'm not drawing. Go away." Marisol ran away, but not before picking up a crumpled sheet of paper. "Hey, come back here with that." Ramon raced after Marisol, up the hall and into her room. He was about to yell, but fell silent when he saw his sister's walls. He stared at the crumpled gallery. "This is one of my favorites," Marisol said, pointing. "That was supposed to be a vase of flowers," Ramon said, "but it doesn't look like one." "Well, it looks vase-ish," she exclaimed. "Vase-ish?" Ramon looked closer. Then he studied all the drawings on Marisol's walls and began to see them in a whole new way. "They do look ish," he said. Ramon felt light and energized. Thinking ishly allowed his ideas to flow freely. He began to draw what he felt, loose lines, quickly springing out, without worry. Ramon once again drew and drew the world around him. Making an ish drawing felt wonderful. He filled his journals. Tree-ish, house-ish, boat-ish, afternoon-ish, fish-ish, sun-ish. Ramon realized he could draw his ish fillings too. Peace-ish, silly-ish, excited-ish. His ish art inspired ish writing. He wasn't sure if he was writing poems, but he knew they were poem-ish. Ponder, pond, ponder, dream, wander. Pond, pond, yond, yond, gleam, wander, Ramon. One spring morning, Ramon had a wonderful feeling. It was a feeling that even ish words and ish drawings could not capture. He decided not to capture it. Instead, he simply savored it. And Ramon lived ishfully ever after. The end-ish.
I invite us to move into a time of silent reflection and meditation, perhaps getting comfortable in your chairs and closing your eyes. Let's take a few nice, deep breaths together, just following the empty breath. As we breathe, we let go of the concerns and thoughts of the day, of the week behind us, the week ahead of us, the year behind us, or the year ahead of us. And we allow ourselves to breathe into this moment now in stillness. We breathe into the place beneath such concerns where we can remember that as we all sit together in silence, we are at the very center of our being of the same essence, cut from the same cloth, yearning for the same peace, the same joy, carrying the same sorrows, sitting together in silence. I call this talk spiritual report cards. I have been running away from failure ever since I was first aware there even was such a thing as a report card. I couldn't imagine anything worse than getting an F. The humiliation, the disgrace. So I made sure that I never did. I actually lived through my school years believing that my grade point average and my self-worth were one and the same thing. Even though ultimately a 4.0 GPA was flimsy proof indeed of any kind of self-worth, but still a string of A's did offer some momentary consolation and camouflage, if you will, for my true failure as a boy, as a straight boy doing straight boy things, not like the other boys at all. It leaves me to wonder how many of us still live our lives as if there will be a report card at the end, as if we will be judged somehow on how meaningful our work was, how meaningful our lives were. How much money did we make? How many things did we acquire? What kind of a parent were we? Or conversely, living with the bone-chilling fear that I must have been absent that day, unaware that this particular moral challenge would be on the final exam, and I blew it. Sharon is living with that very fear, dying imminently from ovarian cancer. Michael, I think I've been a good person. I think I've lived a good life, but I have my regrets and I've made my mistakes, big ones. What if I don't get into heaven? As if she will be judged ultimately on her resume, and not on, say, the love that's in her heart or what she's learned along the way, if she's even to be judged at all. My grandmother, Barbara, my dad's mom, was one tough cookie, so tough, in fact, that her standard reply to the greeting, "How are you?" was, "I'm just as mean as usual." I don't believe in failure, she would say. There's no such thing because you can always learn something. It's a pretty commonly held perception, particularly among those given to positive thinking as a way of navigating through life, and certainly within the mythos of American notions of success. But what I found lacking in my grandmother's declaration was compassion. If I were brokenhearted that I didn't get the thing I wanted more than anything else, devastated really after working so hard to get it, I really didn't want to hear, "Well, I'm not going to feel sorry for you because you're going to learn so much along the way." That wasn't helpful at all in the moment, even if it proved to be true in time. Compassion, after all, only means to be with suffering, to be with it, not to fix it or correct it or compare it. It's not a small or easy thing. Authentic compassion for each other and for ourselves might be the one true great healer. And yet it's not an attribute I've ever seen on any report card or any measuring stick for success. At the same time, I resonate deeply with the writings of Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl. In the end, everything can be taken a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. So there it is right there. Maybe it is ultimately up to us to cast the final verdict, to write that final report card. But I find myself struggling with this all too human urge to cast any verdict at all. Impatient with this dualistic thinking that would see life through this lens of success and failure, win or lose. What if it's not so simple as that? What if it's not so clear cut as that? In the early 90s, a big economic recession hit Los Angeles. I had a fledgling design business at the time, and business fell off to zero. I needed to do something quick. As a stopgap survival strategy, I took the CBEST test, I got an emergency teaching credential, and I was hired to be a substitute school teacher for Inglewood Unified School District. This happened to be a few weeks after the Rodney King uprisings in LA. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but soon enough, I discovered I did not have the constitution to face those schools every day. So on my off days, I volunteered at Project Angel Food, delivering home-cooked meals to homebound people with AIDS. These were the peak years of the AIDS crisis. I also got involved with the fledgling volunteer AIDS hospice group called Project Nightlight. But at the time, I felt like a complete abject failure, a total loser. No one could convince me otherwise. I assiduously avoided friends who might call me, dare to ask the unthinkable question, so what are you doing these days? What's more, I was convinced that I was somehow a spiritual failure, that somehow God had dispensed all the components to live a successful life to everyone else except me. Firmly attached to that idea. And yet, when I look back on that point in time now, I see it as the pivot point that made this part of my life possible. This time that held the door open, that pointed me in this direction of chaplaincy, though it took so many years to materialize. This job that I love so much and seems to make sense of the whole mess of my life so far. So am I to look back on that point in time and call it a success, even a blessing? Hurting so badly that I wanted to die? The older I get, I find the less patience I have for that either or kind of thinking. In the world of cancer, our notions of success and failure become far more challenging. The stakes are that much higher. If this disease means the imminent end of my physical body, does that mean that Western medicine failed? My doctor failed. This drug trial failed. My positive affirmations failed. My vegan diet failed. My acupuncturist failed. My prayers failed. God failed me. I failed God. These profound experiences of failure are not just the province of patients either. Over the years, I've walked beside countless folks left behind, the bereaved. They too wrestle almost uniformly with some deep sense of failure. If I hadn't spent so much time at work, I could have taken better care of her. She might still be here. If it weren't for my depression and anxiety, I know I caused her so much distress. That's why the cancer came back. It's my fault. If I had just insisted that he go to the doctor sooner, why didn't we go get a second opinion or a third opinion? The thing about needing to cast a verdict, I find, is that very seldom is there room for the verdict to be not guilty. Deanna is living with a very aggressive colon cancer. She's also deeply rooted in what might be called a new age sort of philosophy that would tell her that she can create her reality just as she envisions it. through her affirmations and prayer and attitude. Up until now, that philosophy has served her rather well. She's found a wonderful mate. She continues to enjoy success in her business. She's a planner and a goal setter. She likes goals with nice, measurable outcomes. So each win only solidifies her faith that much more. How could it be otherwise? But now the tables have turned and her disease has progressed. That whole paradigm of goal setting becomes far more challenging, even murky. If cure is medically off the table, what's the most she can hope for? Just more time living with cancer. What's more, she feels like a spiritual failure. I guess my attitude wasn't good enough, wasn't positive enough. I guess my prayers weren't good enough. It's my fault. Over 20 years ago, I was covering an overnight on-call shift at the UCLA Medical Center. It was late on a Sunday night, and I was paged to come up to the ICU. An elderly woman, the matriarch of a large African-American family, was very near death, and the family wanted some support and maybe a prayer. I offered them that, and I left. A few hours later, I was paged to come up to the ICU because the woman had passed. And now the family just wanted company while they waited for their pastor to arrive. Once he arrived, he took one look at the scene and said, "It looks like you all didn't pray hard enough." As if this loving family had failed their mother, as if death itself were a failure. And if that's true, all of us are guaranteed an F on our final report card. Spiritual success, spiritual failure, these are tricky concepts. Again, with this either or thinking. Over the years, I've worked beside countless folks, some with very deep faith, some would say they have no faith at all, but sharing a common longing. I wish I were stronger. I wish I had stronger faith. I wish I believed more. When we explore that and tease apart, what do you mean by that, stronger faith? It usually means certainty. I want to know that I'm going to be better. I want to know that I've beat this cancer. I want to know that this drug trial works, that I've got the best doctor around. Paul Tillich, the German-American theologian, says that the opposite of faith isn't doubt, it's certainty. If I'm certain, I'm not really walking in faith anymore, am I? To me, faith might better be defined as a willingness to step off into the unknown with my fears and doubts in tow and continuing to walk anyway, with my eyes and heart open, with curiosity, with humility, with patience, with compassion, even for my experience of failure. With Deanna, who liked to set nice, tidy goals with measurable outcomes, we looked at what another goal might be that doesn't have such a tidy outcome. What about a goal of coming to peace with uncertainty, with her own powerlessness, with grace and allowance to simply be a human being, with more questions perhaps than answers? In this time of the pandemic and all of these extreme measures we've had to endure over the last few years, there have been those among us, myself included, who have sought to maybe redefine or reframe our idea of what spiritual success looks like, because the times seem to demand it. And there are those eternally optimistic spiritual folks who have likened this to a golden opportunity, a chance to hit the reset button for life on planet Earth, to refine and distill all of the extraneous down to what's absolutely essential. Not me. Over these years, I have grieved. I never realized how much of a people person I am, how much of an extrovert, that for me, real physical human contact and touch is like oxygen for me. So much so that that kind of connection and connectedness comes close perhaps to the meaning of life itself. And so for me, sitting in a darkened, sold out theater, knee to knee with a bunch of strangers, being moved to laughter or tears by the same humanity that's on display on stage, becomes a religious ritual. just as it is to gather with my dancing chums on Saturday afternoon in the same dance studio, on the same floor, in front of the same mirror, dancing to the same music. And afterward, getting to participate in Holy Communion, complaining about everything that hurts. Just as it is to travel to some faraway land and get lost in some alleyway among a bunch of locals, many of whom may never have even heard of Los Angeles. Just as it is to hug someone in trouble, a loved one, a friend, a patient, a stranger. So much so that when for so long it seemed like those experiences were off the table for the foreseeable future, maybe even for the rest of my life, a part of me, I'm embarrassed to say, wondered whether life was even worth it. Coming right smack against the limitations of my resilience and adaptability. Not like those spiritually optimistic folks at all. And so in those moments, I felt like a failure. And I would give myself an F. By contrast, Bernadette, 31 years old, lives life with the most profound sense of curiosity and wonder and acceptance and humor. She seems to live in the place of, gee, I wonder what that would be like. So much so that when she began chemotherapy and her beautiful head of red hair began to fall out, we had that conversation I often have, usually with women, about meeting that particular crucible. Some will choose to shave their heads preemptively as a self-empowering kind of gesture. Some might choose to make a lighthearted ritual out of it, dye their hair green and invite their friends over for a shaving party. No, she said, I think it'd be really interesting just to see what it's like to have your hair fall out. And when her treatment was complete and that year came to a close, she was reflecting on that year that had passed and said, you know, Michael, I'd have to say, all in all, it was a pretty good year. Bernadette, in a year that includes a cancer diagnosis, chemotherapy, a radical double mastectomy, radiation, reconstructive surgery, if that doesn't make for a bad year, what on earth would? Oh, I don't know, losing my sense of humor, I guess. A spirit like that can't be broken. I walked beside Grace over the last 6 years of her life, ovarian cancer. Grace had lived a life of dizzying twists and turns, both personally and professionally, zigzagging her way across the country. I asked her once, Grace, if there were a young person in your life, maybe a grandchild, who said, Grace, give me some piece of advice. After all the interesting life you have led, what's one piece of advice you would have for a young person like me? She didn't take much time at all to answer. When the time comes, be ready to go, she said. She actually echoes Joseph Campbell as he describes the hero's journey. In order to be a hero, one must be prepared for when the moment comes. That might be the point of all spirituality, he says. Donna and Lois had shared the last 40-some years of their lives together, now late 70s, early 80s, so at ease with one another, in love with one another, creating family in a culture that is largely hostile to two women calling themselves a family. Lois had been living with ovarian cancer for the last 7 years or so. And as her disease progressed, she decided to take advantage of aid in dying medication for when the going got to be just too rough. She was a no-nonsense, vital, energetic gal who was way more interested in hearing what you had to say than telling her story one more time. Sometimes it was hard to know just how much suffering she was in because she carried her pain with such grace. Though thoroughly contemporary, knew her way around a computer, she was also steeped in old school virtues like letter writing and sending thank you notes. One Saturday night, she leaned over to Donna and said, I think the time has come and I'm going to take the medication tomorrow morning. Donna said, well, honey, if it's that bad, why not take it tonight? I can't. I've got too many things to do. What do you have to do? She asked. Well, I've got some bills to pay and some letters to write, some birthday cards to send, and some thank you notes to write. Well, I'll help you do that, Donna said. So on the last night of her life, after 80 plus years on planet Earth, she spent it intentionally sitting around the dining table with her beloved Donna, engaged in the most mundane activities. And yet activities that are nevertheless rooted in connectedness, compassion, caring. That is an image of spiritual success in my book. The next morning, she got up and put on her best red silk pajamas and said, I guess I might as well go out in style. If there were such a thing as a spiritual report card, I'd give Donna and Lois both an A+, as I would to Bernadette for that incomparable sense of curiosity and wonder and humor, as I would to Grace for her unbelievable ability to just ride the wave of life. Strong faith, spiritual strength, you bet, without a shred of certainty in sight. If there is such a thing as spiritual success, I would say it is rooted in our capacity for compassion, for ourselves, for each other, for this moment as it is and as it is not. A peace with our own powerlessness, and paradoxically finding perhaps a deeper power in that. I'm a big documentary film fan, and I remember in 1995 a wonderful Oscar-nominated documentary called Troublesome Creek. It's a story of a family farm in Iowa that had been in the family for generations, over 125 years. Russell and Mary continue to work the farm, although they're much older now, having raised their kids who had all moved on. But the farm is facing foreclosure because of a farming crisis. And so it's all hands on deck. The kids all come back to Iowa. Everybody's going to do what they can to try to save the family farm. We're given to believe it will kill mom and dad if they lose the farm and have to move into town. So you're kind of dying a little bit as you're watching them auction off the livestock and the farm equipment and their furniture. You see Mary caressing her Ethan Allen dining table. Oh, the Thanksgiving dinners I served at this table. Sold. They just can't lose the farm. But they do. And to everyone's amazement, Russell and Mary thrive. Russell is a new man, unencumbered by all that backbreaking labor and nonstop worry. He's one of those guys that had those wild, untamed, bushy eyebrows that go every which way. And you wonder, what's up with the eyebrows, Russell? There he is in the barbershop, getting them all trimmed up, looking his best. I'll never forget the last line of the film. It's narrated by their daughter, Jean. Success and failure. Sometimes it's hard to tell which is which. Yes, it is. So be it. Thank you.
Our closing hymn this morning is number 95, There Is More Love. For those who are joining from home, the words will be in the chat and the words will also be on the screens. So please join Carole in number 95. There is more love.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere there is more peace. Somewhere there is more peace. Somewhere I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere.
Now is the time for us to extinguish the chalice at UUFLB and within our homes. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of community, love, and justice, taking it out into the world in which we live until we are together again.
I invite us all to close our eyes and maybe take a few nice deep breaths together. And we imagine those times when we could all take hands again with one another in a great circle. And as we do, we feel the energy that passes between us and connects us in the family of things. In that place, might we remember to hang on to one another, to that connection, and yet loosen our grip just a bit on our need for things to be one thing or the other. I desire to cast a verdict, to call it a success or failure, to write a final report card. In this place, may we all be allowed to be who we are, as we are, where we are, with grace and with compassion. So be it.
Please join me in singing Let There Be Peace on Earth. Stand if you would like. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that is meant to be. With earth as our mother, we are family. Let us walk with each other, perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solid vow. Take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Have a great day, everyone.